Somewhere in America, right now, there is a kitchen that is quiet in a way kitchens never used to be. There's no hum from a refrigerator you had to defrost by hand. No sharp metal crack of an ice tray being twisted over the sink at 7 in the morning. No screen door deciding, all on its own, to slam shut behind a kid who was already halfway down the porch steps. That house is not empty. It has more devices in it than any home in the 1960s could have dreamed of. It can talk to you. It can order your groceries, dim its own lights, and answer almost any question you say out loud into the air. And yet, if you grew up in a certain kind of American home, a small one, an ordinary one, the kind with a Formica table in the kitchen and a telephone bolted right to the wall, you already know that something is missing. You just can't always put your finger on what. This video is going to try to put a finger on it. Because the truth is, the home that raised you was full of things that have quietly disappeared. They didn't go out with a headline. There was no funeral, no farewell. They simply stopped being there, one at a time, so slowly that nobody noticed the exact day they left. And then one afternoon, decades later, you found yourself standing in a modern house, feeling a small ache you couldn't explain. We are going to walk back through that old house together. Room by room, object by object, 25 of them. And here is the part that matters most. So stay with me all the way to the end. This is not really a video about old things. The ice tray, the clothesline out back, the phone on the wall, the porch out front. None of them mattered because of what they were. They mattered because of what they made people do. They made a whole family stand in the same room at the same time. They made a mother's entire afternoon smell like sunlight and warm cotton. They made you come inside when the sky turned a certain shade of blue. Every one of them was quiet proof of a house that breathed. A house where being together was not something you had to schedule. It was simply where the day happened. We did not lose the technology. Nobody on earth misses defrosting a freezer. What we lost was the particular way of being close that all these plain, ordinary objects held in place without anyone ever saying so out loud. So we're going to count them down, from 25 all the way to 1. And they are not in a random order. They get heavier as we go. The last few are going to sit right in the center of your chest, because number 1 is not an object at all. It's a rule that every child in America once lived by. A rule written in light at the end of every long summer day. You already know it. You just have to get there. So find yourself a comfortable chair. Pour a cup of coffee, the percolator kind, if you've still got one somewhere in a cabinet. And let's go home for a little while, back to the house that raised us, and to everything inside it that slipped away while we weren't looking. We'll start small, with something you probably haven't thought about in 40 years. Until you hear it again. Number 25. The aluminum ice cube tray. Let's start in the kitchen, early in the morning, before anyone else is up. The first sound of the day wasn't a beep or a chime, it was metal. You pulled a heavy aluminum tray out of a freezer you had to fight a little to open, and you lifted that lever in the middle, the one that had gone stiff with cold, and you pulled. There was a crack. A sharp, satisfying, bone-deep crack as the ice broke loose all at once, and half of it skittered across the counter and into the sink. Your fingers stuck to the metal for a second if you weren't careful. The tray was cold enough to ache. Nobody thought of it as charming. It was just how you got ice, but that little tray asked something of you. It asked for 2 hands and a minute of your morning. Today, the machine in the door of the refrigerator does it silently. In the dark, while you sleep. You never touch it. You never hear it. And that's the quiet trade this whole video is about. We didn't lose the ice. We lost the small, physical moment of making it. The kind of moment a house used to be full of. Number 24. The cookie jar on the counter. It sat right out in the open, usually shaped like something ridiculous. A fat little chef, an owl. A cartoon bear with a chipped ear that nobody had the heart to throw away. And here's what made it matter. It wasn't hidden. It sat on the counter where any kid could reach it. And lifting that lid made a sound the whole kitchen knew. That ceramic scrape, that little clink of the top coming off, a mother could hear it from 2 rooms away and call out, "One, just one." The cookie jar was trust you could see. It said the door was open, the kitchen was yours, and somebody had baked something with their own hands that week. Now, the sweets come sealed in plastic, printed with a date, hidden in a pantry. The jar is gone from most counters, and with it went that small, everyday permission, the sense that home was a place where you could just reach in. Number 23, the percolator. Before coffee was a drive-through window and a name shouted across a counter, it was a sound and a smell that filled the whole house. The percolator sat on the back of the stove, and it worked slowly, the way everything used to. That soft, rhythmic bubbling in the little glass knob on top, the gurgle, and then the smell reaching down the hallway and into the bedrooms, telling everyone, without a word, that the day had started and someone was already up and moving. It wasn't fast, it made you wait. And in that waiting, people ended up standing in the same kitchen together, not saying much, just being there while the coffee found its strength. We traded that for a machine that hands you a cup in 40 seconds, faster, cleaner, and somehow the house doesn't wake up the same way anymore. Number 22, the metal bread box. On the counter, its little door rolled up or swung out, and inside was the loaf, usually soft white bread, sometimes something from a local bakery wrapped in wax paper. It seems like nothing. A box for bread, but that box was a small daily promise. There is food in this house, and it's kept where the family can find it. A kid home from school could open it and make himself something without asking. A neighbor's child could be fed the same way. The bread box quietly disappeared when bread started coming with longer shelf lives, and busier lives stopped needing a fixed place for anything. Now the loaf lives in a bag on top of the microwave, forgotten until it's gone. A small thing, but the kitchen used to have a place for everything, and everything had its place. Number 21, the calendar from the local business. It hung by the phone or on the back of a door, and it was free, given out every December by the bank, or the hardware store, or the funeral home, or the feed store out on the county road. Right there at the top was the name of a business run by someone you actually knew, a picture of a covered bridge, or a puppy, or a lake at sunrise, and below it, in your mother's handwriting, the whole life of the family, dentist appointments, birthdays circled in pen, the day school let out, the church supper, grandma coming Sunday. That calendar tied your family to a business, and that business to a person, and that person to your town. Today the calendar lives inside a phone, and it belongs to no one and nowhere. It doesn't hang by the door where the whole family can see the shape of the month coming. Number 20, the kitchen junk drawer. Every house had one. You know exactly which drawer I mean. Rubber bands, a spare key to a door that no longer existed, matchbooks from a restaurant 2 towns over, a screwdriver, twine, a single mysterious battery, coupons 3 months expired. That drawer was the household's memory, its history, its emergency kit all in one, and nobody was ever allowed to clean it out completely. It sounds like clutter, but that drawer was proof that a family had accumulated a life together in one place, that people had stayed put long enough for the small things to pile up. In a world where so much now lives on a screen and gets wiped clean with a swipe, there's something almost tender about a drawer full of the physical leftovers of a family's years. Number 19, the telephone on the wall. It was bolted to the kitchen wall, and it did not move, which meant you didn't move much either when you used it. The cord stretched, and every house had that cord, coiled and kinked from years of being pulled around the corner so a teenager could get half a foot of privacy. There was a dial you had to turn with your finger and wait as it clicked back, and if you got a number wrong near the end, you started the whole thing over. But here's the thing that's easy to forget. That phone was in the middle of the house, out in the open, on purpose. Every call was half heard by everyone. You knew who called your sister, who your mother talked to on Sunday when the doctor phoned. The phone kept the family's business inside the family, in the warm center of the home. Now the phone is in every pocket, private and endless, and it pulls each person off into a separate room, a separate world. We got reach. We lost the shared line running through the middle of the house. Number 18. The telephone table and the phone book. And beside that phone, in a lot of homes, there was a strange little piece of furniture that no house has anymore. A small bench with a seat and a shelf, built just for talking on the telephone. You sat there, you had to, and on the shelf below sat the phone book, thick as a brick, holding the name and address of nearly everyone in the county. If you wanted to find someone, you looked them up, and there they were, a real person, in a real place, findable. That book meant your whole town was written down in one volume you could hold in your lap. Everybody was in it. Everybody could be reached. Today, finding a person means an app and a login, and sometimes you still can't reach them at all. The town used to fit in a book by the phone, and you knew you were listed in it too, right there among your neighbors. Number 17. The radio playing low. Before the house filled up with screens, it filled up with a voice. A single radio, on a shelf or the kitchen windowsill, turned down low. In the summer, it played all afternoon with the windows open, and the sound drifted out into the yard, so that walking down the block you could hear the same station coming from 3 houses in a row. A ball game, a local announcer reading off the church bake sale, and the lost dog and the weather like he was talking to friends, because he was. That radio was one town listening to one voice at the same time. It made a whole neighborhood share an afternoon without any of them being in the same room. Now everyone wears something in their ears and hears a different song chosen by a machine that knows them but doesn't know the town. The street used to hum with one summer sound. Now every window is quiet in its own way. Number 16. The television and the rabbit ears. The TV was small, boxy, and heavy as an anvil, and it did not always cooperate. You got maybe a handful of channels, and getting them clearly was a family project. Somebody had to stand up, walk over, and adjust the rabbit ear antenna on top, turning it, tilting it, wrapping the tips in aluminum foil. And there was always that moment when the picture came in perfectly, and whoever was holding the antenna had to freeze. Right there, don't move, stay right there. So one person stood like a statue, an arm in the air, holding the whole family's picture steady with their own body. Think about that. Watching TV used to require one of you to physically hold the signal together for the others. It was funny, and it was annoying, and it was, without anyone noticing, a small act of taking care of each other. Now the screen is flawless, enormous, and it never asks anyone to get up. It never asks anything of us at all. Number 15. The night the television said goodnight. And here's something no one under a certain age has ever seen. Television used to end. Late at night, the programs would run out. And before the screen went to static, there was a sign-off. Sometimes the national anthem playing over a waving flag, or a poem, or just a still image and a voice wishing you good night. And then the test pattern, and then that low, steady hum. That signal was a kind of gentle hand on the shoulder. It said, "That's enough now, go to bed. The day is over." The house grew quiet. Someone got up and turned the knob with a solid click, and the whole family understood that the night had a bottom to it, a place where it stopped. Nothing stops anymore. The screens never sleep, and neither, quite, do we. We lost the good night. The moment the house itself told you the day was done and it was safe to rest. Number 14. The record player in the console. In the living room, sometimes it was a whole piece of furniture, a long wooden cabinet you could set a lamp on, and inside it lived the record player and the speakers. Playing music was a small ceremony. You slid the record out of its sleeve, held it by the edges, the way your father taught you, set it down, and lowered the needle by hand into that first quiet crackle before the song began. You couldn't skip around. You listened to a side, the way it was meant to be heard, and when it ended, somebody had to get up and flip it. That music filled a room, not a pair of headphones. It was played out loud, for whoever was home, so that a song became something the whole family remembered together, tied to a certain summer, a certain kitchen, a certain person dancing badly in their socks. Now the music is infinite and invisible and private. We can hear anything ever recorded. We just don't gather around it anymore. Number 13. The living room nobody was allowed in. And then there was the front room, the good room, the one with the nice sofa, often wrapped in clear plastic that stuck to the back of your legs in July. You didn't live in that room. You lived in the kitchen and the den. The front room was saved. For the pastor, for company, for Christmas morning, for the photograph after a wedding or a funeral. It had the good lamp, and the framed pictures, and the furniture that had to last 30 years, because it would. It's easy to laugh at now, a whole room you couldn't use, but that room was a family, saying, quietly, that some things are kept nice on purpose, that you prepare a place for the people who matter, that not everything should be worn out and casual and used up. Most homes don't have that room anymore. We stopped saving a place for company, maybe because we stopped expecting company to come. Number 12. The screen door. Step now toward the back of the house, to the door that let the summer in. Not the heavy front door, the screen door. Thin wooden frame, a spring stretched tight along the top, and a mesh that had a small patch where somebody's elbow had gone through years ago. That door had one sound, and every house on the street shared it, the long creak as it opened, and then the bang as the spring yanked it shut. Whack. A sound your mother could read like a language. She knew from the rhythm of it whether a child had come in for something or was already gone again. Nobody ever caught it in time. "Don't let the door slam," she'd call, and it slammed anyway, and it kept slamming for 20 summers. That door was the border between inside and out, and it was a soft border. It let the smell of cut grass and the sound of the neighborhood drift straight into the kitchen. The house was not sealed off from the world. It breathed with it. Homes today close with a solid, expensive click. Sealed, climate-controlled, quiet. Nothing gets in. Not the heat, not the bugs, and not the sound of your kids playing in a yard you can no longer hear from the sink. Number 11. The clothesline in the backyard. Out past that door was a length of rope strung between two poles, and on a good drying day, it held the whole family up to the sun. Wash day was work, real work, wet and heavy, a basket carried out on a hip. But then came the part nobody who lived it has ever forgotten. The sheets went up, and the wind caught them, and they snapped and billowed like sails. And when you brought them in at the end of the afternoon and buried your face in them, there was a smell that no bottle has ever managed to fake. Warm cotton, sunlight, fresh air pressed right into the cloth. You slept that night wrapped in an entire summer day. The clothesline also did something quieter. It put the mothers of a neighborhood out in their yards at the same time, in view of each other, close enough to talk over a fence. Wash day was also visiting day. We traded the line for a machine in a closet that tumbles everything dry in an hour behind a closed door. Faster, easier, and that smell, the smell of sheets dried in the sun, is simply gone from most American homes, and the children being born today will never once know it. Number 10. The Formica kitchen table. Back inside, in the middle of the kitchen, stood the table where the family actually lived. Not the dining room, the kitchen table. Formica top, usually a pattern like boomerangs or little gold flecks, with a shiny chrome band around the edge and legs to match. It was tough. You could spill on it, do homework on it, roll out pie dough on it, press a cold washcloth to a skinned knee on it, and wipe it clean with one swipe of a dish rag. That table was the busiest square footage in America. Breakfast happened there in the dark of a winter morning. Bills got paid there at night. Kids did their arithmetic there while supper cooked 2 feet away. It was where the family gathered without ever deciding to, where the day's news got told, where somebody cried and somebody laughed and somebody got scolded, all around the same wipeable surface. Kitchens now are built around an island, and everyone passes through and eats standing up or somewhere else entirely, plate in one hand, phone in the other. The table where the whole family once landed several times a day, elbow to elbow, has quietly shrunk out of the center of the home. Number 9. Supper at the same time every night. And here's what that table held. A rule so ordinary, nobody thought to name it. Everyone ate together, at the same time, every single night. There was an hour, 5:30, 6 o'clock, when the whole family was expected to be in one place. You washed your hands, you came to the table, you waited until everyone sat down. Maybe grace was said, heads bowed over meatloaf and mashed potatoes and whatever the garden was giving that week. And then, for that half hour, the family was a single thing in a single room. It wasn't always warm. There were arguments at that table, and long, cold silences too. But the requirement itself was the gift, the simple, unbending fact that once a day, no matter what, the family assembled and looked at one another's faces. That hour has dissolved. Everyone eats on a different schedule now, in front of a different screen, in a different room. The nightly gathering that once organized the whole day around one shared meal has, in most homes, simply stopped happening. And a family that never sits down together slowly forgets the small daily habit of being a family in one room. Number 8. The whole family around one small television. Now walk into the front room in the evening, because this is one worth standing still for. There was one television, one small screen, big cabinet, and it sat against the wall like a hearth, and that is exactly what it became. In the evening, the whole family drew up around it. Dad in his chair, Mom on the sofa, kids on the floor right up close, everyone facing the same soft glow in a dark room. It was the closest thing that house had to a fire, and they gathered around it the way people have always gathered around a fire, together, quiet, shoulder to shoulder. And because there was only one, you watched what everyone watched. You laughed at the same joke in the same second. You reached for each other in the scary parts. The show was almost beside the point. The point was that the family was all in one room, all looking the same direction, sharing one small window into the world. Now, every person in the house has their own screen, in their own hand, in their own room, watching their own thing. The house is full of screens and empty of that circle. We each got our own fire, and we stopped sitting around it together. Number 7. The neighbors who walked right in. Somewhere in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, the back door would open without a knock, and it wasn't a stranger. It was Betty from next door, needing a cup of sugar. That was normal. Neighbors came to the door, the back door, the everyday door, and they came without calling first, because there was no calling first. You borrowed an egg, you returned a casserole dish. You sent a kid across the yard to ask if they had a spare fuse. The houses were close, the fences were low, and the line between your family and the family next door was something you could just step over. Those small borrowings were how a neighborhood held itself together. Every cup of sugar was a tiny thread, and there were hundreds of them running house to house, until the whole block was stitched into one loose, living thing. You knew who was sick. You knew whose boy was off in the service. You knew, and you were known. Most of us now could not name the people 3 doors down. We pull into the garage and the door comes down behind us. The threads got cut, one polite closed door at a time, and the neighborhood became a street of strangers who happened to park near each other. Number 6. The milkman at the door. And it wasn't only neighbors who came to the house. The world used to come to your door, in glass bottles, before you were even awake. The milkman left them on the step in the gray light of morning, cold bottles with the cream risen to the top, set into a metal box by the door. You brought in the empties, rinsed and waiting, and the exchange happened so quietly and so faithfully that a child grew up thinking milk simply appeared, the way the sun did. But it was a person, a man with a root, who knew which house had a new baby and needed an extra bottle, who'd leave a note, who you'd wave to. The bread man came too, and the man who sharpened knives, and the one who fixed the pots. Commerce had a face and a first name, and it walked right up your path. Now the box on the step is a plastic bin, and what's in it was ordered by a tap on a screen and dropped by a stranger who is gone before you reach the door. The milk still comes. The person is gone. Number 5. The ice cream truck. But of all the things that came down the street, there was one sound that could empty a house of children in about 4 seconds flat. Far off, tinny and sweet, that music came drifting around the corner, and every kid on the block heard it at the same instant and went absolutely electric. There was a scramble for the screen door, for a mother, for a quarter, for shoes you didn't even bother to put on. Barefoot, the whole pack of them tore down the hot sidewalk, waving their arms, terrified the truck would turn off before they got there. And then, the truck stopped, and the freezer breathed out its cold fog, and you made the enormous decision of your day. And you stood on the curb with sticky hands and melting treats and every other kid from 3 streets over, all of you together in the long gold light of a summer evening. The trucks still run in a few places, but the children are mostly inside now, one to a screen, and the streets they'd have flooded are quiet. That barefoot stampede, the whole neighborhood's kids as one joyful mob, has faded from most of America. Number 4. Being sent outside until dark. And that mob had somewhere to be, because childhood used to happen out of doors, with almost no adult in sight. After breakfast in the summer, your mother said one thing: go outside. And that was the last plan anyone made all day. There was no schedule, no app tracking where you were. You were simply out, in the yards and the woods and the empty lot and the street, building things, breaking things, roaming in a pack from one adventure to the next, coming home only for a drink of water from the garden hose. Nobody knew exactly where you were, and that was not neglect. That was the deal. The whole neighborhood was your territory, watched over loosely by every mother on every porch, and you were trusted to it. You skinned your knees and settled your own arguments and learned how to be a person out where the grown-ups couldn't see. That kind of childhood is nearly extinct. Kids today are scheduled, driven, supervised, and screened, and the wide free country of the summer afternoon has shrunk to a backyard or a bedroom or a small glowing rectangle. We made childhood safer. We also made it smaller. Number 3, the front porch. At the end of the day, the whole family ended up in the same place. Out front, on the porch, watching the street. After supper, when the dishes were done and the worst of the heat had broken, people came out and sat. On the steps, on a glider that squeaked, in a couple of metal chairs. There was no plan and nothing to watch but the evening itself. The neighbors walking by, the kids running out the last of their energy, the lightning bugs coming up out of the grass. And the porch faced out. That's the thing to hold on to. It faced the street, the neighbors, the world. When someone passed, you waved. When someone stopped, you talked. The porch was a room with no walls, an open invitation, the place where a family sat with its face turned toward the community it belonged to. Then air conditioning pulled everyone inside, and the television turned every family to face its own wall, and the new houses got built with the garage out front and the living space out back, facing a private fenced yard where no one can see you and you can see no one. The porch is still there on the old houses, but mostly in the evening now, nobody's sitting on it. Number 2, your mother's voice calling you home. And as the light went blue and thin over all of it, the yards, the porches, the emptying street, there came a sound that every child in America once knew by heart, your own name, called out into the dusk. Every mother had her own version of it, a particular pitch and stretch to the syllables that carried down the block and over the fences. and a child could pick his mother's voice out of all the others instantly, from 3 yards away, in the middle of a game. That one specific call that meant the day was ending and it was time. The other kids heard their own names too, one by one, and the pack broke apart into the dark, each child peeling off toward a lit kitchen window and a screen door and the smell of home. You didn't have a phone in your pocket. You didn't need one. The whole system of getting a child home ran on a mother's voice and the failing light, and it worked every single night. That sound is almost gone now. We text a child to come in, and something warm and ancient, a human voice calling a human name across the neighborhood at dusk, has fallen quiet on nearly every street in the country. Number 1. When the streetlights came on. And that brings us, at last, to the one rule that governed every childhood in America, not written anywhere, never explained. Every kid just knew it. You had to be home when the streetlights came on. That was the whole deal, not a time on a clock. Most kids weren't watching a clock. It was the light itself. You'd be out in the last of the game, the sky going from gold to purple to that deep blue, and you'd feel it coming. And then, up and down the streetlights would flicker, buzz, and glow to life, all at once, and something in your chest would drop, because you knew, time's up. Everybody home. There'd be one last shout across the yard, the lights are on. And the whole neighborhood of children would scatter for home, in the near dark, cutting through yards, bikes with no lights on them, flying down the middle of the street, each kid running toward a porch light and a mother and a warm lit house. Think about what that light really was. It was a clock the whole town could see. It was freedom with an edge to it. A whole day of roaming that you paid for by coming home when the sky told you to. It was trust. Your parents let you disappear into the neighborhood all day because they knew the light would bring you back. And it was the sweetest feeling a child ever knew. Running home in the dusk, a little scared, a little wild, straight toward the one place in the world that was warm and lit and waiting for you. No app did that. No phone did that. The sky did it, and the light did it, and the whole neighborhood lived by it together. The streetlights still come on every evening, right on schedule, but the streets under them are empty now. There are no children out there to call home. And if you close your eyes, you can still see it, the blue dusk, the bikes, the lit windows, and you can still hear your mother's voice, and you can still feel exactly what it felt like to run home just as the lights came on. That feeling was home. And it is the thing out of all of them that we miss the most. So there they are, 25 things, counted down from the small to the enormous, from a metal ice tray cracking over a morning sink, all the way to a whole neighborhood of children running home under the first streetlights of the evening. And by now, you can feel the thing this video has really been about, because we never actually talked about ice trays, or clotheslines, or the phone on the wall. Not really. We talked about a family standing in the same kitchen while the coffee brewed, a mother and her neighbors, out in their yards on wash day, close enough to talk. A whole family pulled up around one small glowing screen like it was a fire. A pack of barefoot kids the whole street knew by name. We talked about presents, about being close to one another without having to plan it. That's the part that slipped away. Not the objects, the togetherness the objects held in place. Every one of those plain, ordinary things was quiet proof that life used to happen in the same room, at the same time, with the same people, over and over, day after day, until all of that repetition added up to something we only have one word for: home. And let's be honest about it, the way this channel always tries to be. That world was not perfect. Those small houses were crowded. That work was hard. The wash was heavy. The winters were cold. The money was often short. And not every family at that Formica table was a happy one. Plenty of people couldn't wait to get out of that town, and some of them had good reasons. Nobody should stand here and tell you it was all warm light and lightning bugs, but it gave people something we are still looking for. It gave them a place to belong, and people to belong to, built right into the ordinary shape of the day. You didn't have to search for community. You couldn't avoid it. It came to your door in a glass bottle. It sat next to you on the porch. It called your name across the yard when the sky went dark. We didn't lose all of that in one big moment. There was no single day it ended. It went one closed door at a time, one machine that did the job silently, so nobody had to stand together and do it. One screen for every person, in every room, so nobody had to share. One convenience at a time, each one a small gift, until we looked up and realized the house was quieter than it had ever been, and we couldn't quite remember when everyone had drifted off to their separate corners. The good news, and there is good news, is that none of it is really lost as long as you still carry it. You remember the smell of those sheets. You remember your mother's voice at dusk. You remember running home under the streetlights with your heart pounding. And as long as you remember, you can bring a little of it back. You can put the phones down at supper. You can sit on the porch. You can learn the names of the people 3 doors down. You can be, for the people in your own life, the warm lit window at the end of the street. So here's what I'd love from you, if this video meant something to you tonight. Tell me in the comments about the one that got you. Was it the screen door slamming? The ice cream truck? The cookie jar on the counter? Or was it number 1, the streetlights coming on, and your mother's voice, and the run home in the dark? Tell me what your house had that this one didn't. Tell me about the town you grew up in, the one that raised you. Somebody reading your comment is going to see it and whisper, "Yes, mine too." That's how we keep these things alive, by remembering them out loud, together. And if you'd like to keep walking back through the America we left behind, the main streets, the diners, the five and dimes, the holidays that belong to the whole neighborhood, then subscribe to Back When America and come along. Give this video a like so it finds more people who remember, and share it with someone who grew up the same way you did. A brother, a sister, an old friend, someone who'd know exactly what you mean. Thanks for spending this time with me, back in the old house. The streetlights are coming on now. Time to head home.